Hello, today I'm going to walk you through a very simple file. It's a needle organiser cushion. I have a couple of other files on my site which are sewing files for a similar type of item, but this is done an in the hoop project and done with embroidery. Although there is a choice to embroider the words and the numbers and the lines, or to print it out on fabric. With the file you will receive a PDF that you can print direct onto fabric if you desire, rather than do the embroidering of the letters and the lines. That will be included in the file, and the instructions on how to print onto fabric. There is another video within my YouTube channel which shows you this technique. It won't be the same file, but it is exactly the same technique. Okay, so there we have, for this we have two pieces of fabric, one for the back and one for the front, and it's hooped in a 5x7 hoop. This is going to be my back piece of material, and this is going to be my front piece of material. This is one that I've printed on so that you can see what you'll get in the file. You can use that, or you can, as I say, embroider direct onto the fabric. I've decided to embroider direct onto the fabric for this video, and I've hooped the fabric and the stabilizer together, mainly because the fabric I'm using here is a little bit on the thin side and I want to make sure that it stays in place. I've hooped tearaway stabilizer, and it's in a 5x7 hoop. Now the first step that will be stitched will be a placement line for the fabric. If you're not hooping the fabric, you'll do the placement line and use that to place your fabric over and make sure that it's in place. But it is a good idea on this occasion to actually hoop the fabric, because it will keep it nice and taut, and it takes up a fair bit of space in the hoop. So what I'll do is I'll go to take this to the machine now, and I'll do the first step, which will be the placement line. Okay, as you can see, I've done the placement line, which is here. It's in a green. I hope you can see it on the fabric. This is where you would make sure, if you were floating your fabric, you would float it over this base. Now I would suggest you do that anyway, because it will help with the tack down if you've put the fabric in the hoop, as I have done. Now if you were floating the fabric and you were using the printed chart, this is how we would need to do it, is to make sure that that comes in centrally between the lines. We would place our printed needle chart over, hold it in place with either pins or tape, whichever is your preferred method, and then we would do the second stage, which is the tack down. As I say, I'm not using the printed one, I'm going to do the embroidery one, so we can see how the embroidery comes out. So the next stage will be the second colour, which will be the tack down of the fabric. Okay, so I'll go ahead and do that, and then the third stage will be a decorative stitch, which will go all the way around the border. Okay, so as you can see, I've done the tack down stitch, which is a triple run stitch, which would go around here. This would be after you've tacked your fabric down if you were floating, or if you were putting the printed fabric on, that would tack it down. We've then done a very small decorative border that goes all the way around. My thread broke there, so that's why it's a little bit of a bunch up there, but my thread broke and I had to rethread. Now we're going to do the lines, which will be the lines that differentiate between the sizes and the writing. So it will be changed to any colour you want to change to. Keep it the same colour, it's up to you. I'm going to go back to green and do the lines. Okay, so here we have the lines stitched in a running stitch for the grids. So now we're going to do the words, which will have all the description of the types of needles and the sizes of needles across the top. The only difference with this grid to the previous one that I've done for on my sewing patterns are that there are more options of needles. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead now, take this back to the machine and do the words. I'm going to do the writing in the same colour as I did the border, in red, and then we're very nearly finished. Okay, so I've now done the lettering. Before we go any further, I'd just like to mention a few tips. Sometimes it doesn't pay to try to be too frugal. I was coming to the end of a red spool which I wanted to use up. I didn't want to waste any. Hence it was an old spool of cotton, and I started to get some shredding issues with the thread. But I continued and I did the border and I started doing some of the writing. And as you can see here, I left it. I could have taken it out and just not mentioned anything, but I think it's something to pay attention to. So here it came to a bit of a head, the thread kept breaking, and I went back over this wording a couple of times because there were bits that kept being missed. So it was at this stage I decided I would take the machine not apart, but where the threading path is on the machine, and just have a look inside. And because I'd had a few shredding issues, there were a couple of pieces of cotton in the thread path, not immediately visible, but after a little bit of investigation, magnifying glass, good light, I found those pieces of thread, took them out, put in a new spool of thread and continued with the stitching. As you can see, the stitching here is fine. I then decided, having looked at it, that the border, had there been a bit of a tension problem with that old thread, some of the white was coming through, so I decided also to redo the border. And as you can see, you can tell that this is better than the border was before. So it's not, sometimes people blame a design because the tension, or it's not sewing correctly, or there's the white bobbin thread is coming up through, or you're getting thread breaks and shredding. Do take the end of the sewing machine or embroidery machine apart so that you can see clearly the thread path and remove any little strands of thread you find there. Use a brush. People use dental floss, wax dental floss, to put through the threading path to remove anything. I don't do that. I have difficulty finding the correct waxed type dental floss here in France to use. The last time I used it, it caused more problems because it itself shredded going through the path. So that just added extra bits of fibre to clean out. But soon as you start to get a problem, take a look. Look at the threading, the way you've threaded the machine. Look to see if there are any loose bits of thread that got caught up, especially if you're continuing to have thread shredding, thread breakage. There's usually a reason for it, and it's usually a piece of lint, a piece of cotton, a bit of something stuck somewhere that you haven't seen. Okay, that being said, as you can see, we're now nearly finished. This is the front piece. So what we need to do now is we get the back piece of fabric, which we lay on top of this face down, right side down. If you have a direction to your fabric, make sure you have it the right way. I don't think there's any particular direction to this fabric. We've got ladybirds going this way, going that way, flower going that way, maybe the flowers there. So we put this over the top. Now you can either tape in place, pin in place, the choice is yours. I will pin it in place. I like to use flathead pins I've got a pin here up out the way. Okay, so here we are, that's the last stitches stitched. This is the tack down the back down fabric with a gap here. So all we need to do now is to take it out of the hoop, and we'll trim it around the edges, not too close, about 1/4 inch seam. Okay, so here we have it trimmed. It's curling up a bit because it's quite a light fabric that I've used, so I suggest you use something a bit thicker. We're now going to turn this inside out, which I always have a problem doing. Now very carefully, with your scissors closed, or if you have a turning tool or another object you can use, push out the corners like so. That's a bit close there. I will edit that just to make that there. Okay, so you can press this obviously to make it flatter and better. All you need to do then is give it a press. Give it a press, fill it, fold these edges in, that one and that one, and you can either use fabric glue to finish it off or hand stitch it closed. But there we have it, a cushion needle organiser. You could put ordinary wadding in it or a piece of foam, up to you how you pad it, how heavy you want it. I don't have any wadding at the moment, but you can make that into a slightly rounded pin cushion. And there you have it. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video. Please hit the like button and subscribe if you've enjoyed this project. I just thought I'd show you, I've added some of this this here foam on the inside that I use when making bags. I forget what it's called. It's I don't know how thick it is actually. 2-3 mil. It's foam that you use for. It's about 4 mil thick. I've used that. I've put 2 pieces that I found, 2 scrap pieces. Needs to be trimmed down a little bit more, but I've just put 2 pieces of those inside, and there you have quite a nice little pad where you can put your needles in that you've used or using. If you've got a 9011 in your machine, stick a pin in it so that you know what you have in your machine, and then any needles that you've used but they're not dull or they've only been used for a small project, you could put them in the relevant place to keep for next time. So all I need to do now is to just, I will trim that foam inside there a little bit better so that it lies a bit neater, hand stitch it closed, or as I say, you can use fabric glue to close it, and there you have your needle organiser. It's the foam. When I remember the name of the foam, I'll put the name of it in the description of the YouTube channel video. Thank you again for watching.